Okay folks, you're very welcome back to the vlog. Today I'm discussing Audrey Magee's book The Colony. Irish writer, story is based in Ireland, though I have to say when I heard the word colony I was thinking possibly somewhere in Africa, but it's based in Ireland, in an island in the west of Ireland. It could easily be on an island in the west of Scotland, or even the east of Scotland, or off of Norway, or maybe even France for that matter. I think it's a kind of a universal theme, really. Yeah, I suppose one of the reasons I picked this is because I heard so much about it, really. It was longlisted for the Booker Prize, and many people's fancy for a short list nomination, but it never received that. And, you know, having read the book myself, I very much feel that maybe a lot of those people were right. Comparing it to some of the books that actually made the long list, or the short list, should I say, yeah, this very much appealed to me more than maybe some of those books. And as I go through it in a minute, you know, this book is a book of many different levels, really. It's not just the one level. You've got, let's say, the storyline on one level, but many themes running underneath it. As you know, also it's delivered in a kind of a unique way. In the sense that it's a very easy book to read, and yet often the simplest books can have the most profound of meanings and some of the best of stories. It's delivered in a unique kind of a style. I don't want to kind of say too much about it, in the sense that, you know, often the lines are only maybe say 3 or 4 words each, and then you're on to the next line, and there's patterns of that as you go through the book, depending on who's speaking or where the actual it's mainly in the head of the English protagonist in this particular book. He's a painter. His name is Mr. Lloyd, or they call him Lloyd in the actual story. He's from London. He's come to the west of Ireland, to this particular island, to find isolation, really, a bit like some of the religious orders in times past. He wants to fine-tune his artistic abilities, to basically pare back you know, the complexities of life, and to explore his art and the art form itself, and to see can he develop it in an environment that isn't cluttered, that he has time, that he doesn't have to be here, there and everywhere. And it seems also that he doesn't have his wife around, who's quite demanding of him, and their relationship is a bit fractious. In fact, one wonders, is there much of a relationship really? We hear more about it as the book goes on, and I'm certainly not going to try and spoil too much for you. I will give the background. As I said, it's about Mr. Lloyd coming over. He's not used to boats, and certainly not curraghs anyway, from the west of Ireland. He arrives over and he finds that he's not the only visitor to this particular island, and he had hoped that he was, in the sense that he wanted this isolation, and maybe to get back to the roots, and he felt that within these primitive environments that he could find maybe the roots of himself, of his own personality, of his own kind, of humankind, and from then that his art might develop. He finds that another visitor arrives, an annual visitor to this particular area, a Frenchman called J.P. Masson. And this particular Frenchman has his own reasons. He's very pro-Irish. He's trying to research the actual language and the death of a language, really, and compare that to maybe parts of his own life in France. His mother is Algerian, his father was a Frenchman, and we get more of what happened in his past and what a contrasting past both his parents had and that he has had from the people who live on the island. And he's very demanding of them in the sense that he pressurizes them with regard to their Irishness and their identity and the love of the Irish language. We then have, and I have the names written down here, we then have the Irish family led by Benny Lyne, as in Mrs. Flynn, and she's the eldest, and she's quite an old lady, and she's the lady that Masson has most interest in because he's basing his research on her life and her interest in the Irish. And then she has a daughter called Banny Nail, we give an age maybe of around maybe 50, 55, and then she has another daughter, and that daughter is called Mairead. Now Mairead has a kind of a link, and that's how I'll put it, with both Mr. Lloyd and J.P. Masson. And slowly but surely those links and connections are developed as the story goes along. Mairead is a widow. Her husband was a reluctant fisherman on an island where there wasn't much else to do but be a fisherman, and from that marriage there's a young lad, a lad in his teenage years, a guy called his Seamus it was his birth name, but he uses the translation, the English translation of James, which doesn't go down too well with J.P. Masson. And so these are the main characters within. There is one other character, Francis, the boatman, who brings Mr. Lloyd out to the actual island itself. And he's quite a domineering character, and though he doesn't live on the island, he has quite a control over, people's behaviour and who stays and who doesn't stay, who goes and who doesn't go. And as he has brought these foreigners really to the island and paid the people to keep their upkeep. During his stay, Mr. Lloyd asks could he even move further away from the cluster of houses, and I wouldn't call them houses, maybe old cottages, and yes, somebody has some kind of a sheep shelter way out on the other side of the island, and he heads out there to again get away from it all, to get back to his roots. For me, the beauty in the book is the different levels and the different themes that come through in this particular story. The themes of isolation, of loneliness, of island life, of maybe say the perceptions of people about islanders and the reality of it for islanders, the reality that life is not just tough, it's incredibly tough, and how they have to live with the fact that lots of them would then have to end up being fishermen because there's no other source of income, and also the difficulty that there is in such a life, the precariousness of the actual the islanders' life with regard to the sea and how rough the sea can be, particularly the wild Atlantic way, and how savage that can be. Unfortunately, James's father dies, and he's a reluctant fisherman. James himself is not anxious to become a fisherman, and so is his angle is, what can I do to possibly not be a fisherman? And there's pressure under him from his family and from the environment to do so. We also have other themes such as, let's say, nationalism, self-identity, national identity, and that comes both from the Frenchman, the Englishman, and the Irish family within the island. And then also the theme of language. Do you have to speak your own language to have your own identity? Is that very important? I know that maybe speaking a certain amount of Irish to me is very important, but yet I'm giving you this in English. I don't speak Irish all the time, but I would consider myself to be to be fluent in it. I certainly went to Gael School when I was younger, so there was a lot of pros in that, there was a lot of cons in it as well too. But having said that, you know, I'm one of these people who believes that, you know, if you are Irish, you should be able to speak Irish. Like the Welsh, you know, are very adamant that they should speak Welsh. This island could easily be an island off of the coast of Wales as well. Likewise with the Greeks, you don't hear that the Greeks are speaking Russian or they're speaking English, they're speaking Greek, I'm sure. So anyway, you know, there's that kind of angle to it. Other themes, and I have a few written down here, the theme of love and the different types of love, family love, you know, especially with the interwoven with the theme of isolation and island life. And, you know, is it love, or are people just thrown together? Do they have to just make do with what they have? And then the fact that life is so precious and life can be so, you know, easily taken, especially when you're at the periphery of civilization, really. Hope is another one, another theme that comes up quite a bit in this particular book. The hopes of the people on the island. Lots of them are anxious to get off the island, and those that are not on the island are anxious to get on the island. So therefore you have, let's say, a feeling of place, of, you know, those from maybe France and in London are very anxious to be out of there. Likewise, the islanders are very anxious to find life elsewhere if it's possible. Some of them, the younger ones, the older ones obviously have settled for the life that they have on the island. Loyalty to one's nationality, loyalty to one's family, loyalty to one's the expectations of what one will be, and ambition, you know, what exactly you want for yourself within your life, where you are in your environment and how your ambitions can be achieved within that environment, or whether you can move from that environment. So a load of themes coming up here, and that's what makes this book really rich in you know, several books have only several different themes. This particular one, very much quite a rainbow of themes there, really, and it put across in such a way that you want to keep reading more. It's very clear where they're going with the stories. I have to say, with the likes of Glory and with the likes of, you know, the Seven Moons of Almeida, you know, you're lost in what's going on. You've missed the whole point. The deeper meanings get lost because you're struggling to try and work out what is actually going on here. So well done to Audrey Magee. I very much enjoyed this particular book. I'd love to hear what you thought of it. Please put comments underneath this particular video in the comment section, and I'd be delighted to hear what you have to say about it. I hope I haven't given away any spoilers, really. I will be looking out for more books from Audrey Magee. I am reading other books at the moment, and I certainly will, when I do come across them, pick them up and endeavour to read them again. One has only X amount of time, really, in one's life, especially when you're doing a whole lot of other things like trying to work and have family life and also, for me, photography as well. But really enjoyed that book. I did get some reaction from other people, and I'd very like to bring that to you. Just in some of the comments earlier in other vlogs, TK says, and I've got to get my glasses for this one, disappointed the colony and map of our spectacular bodies were not on the Booker Prize shortlist. Neil Turner then, who makes, and I'm delighted that he does, puts a lot of comments in the different vlogs. Neil, delighted that he made his comment. Highly recommend the audiobook of The Colony. This book was another of my favourites and disappointed it didn't get shortlisted. Thanks for that, Neil. And Mary Power, another person who has made quite a few comments. Mary says that it's a beautifully crafted book, in-depth characters and a wide range of themes. It's a book that has many levels and deeper meanings, and I very much echo that myself. One thing I would say, and I left out earlier, it's interspersed with different vignettes of the atrocities that happened in Northern Ireland. The book itself is set in 1979. The Troubles in the North are, I wouldn't say at their height, but they are certainly 1979. There was a big event in Sligo at Mullaghmore. I'm not going to go into which it is. It is mentioned here later in the actual book. And the one thing I would say is that there are different type of vignettes and stories. Some of them may be only 15 lines long. None of them go beyond the page, and they tell of atrocities around the north predominantly, and from both sides, be it Catholics or Protestants. I have to say, at the start, I'm quite shocked with some of the stories, but after a while, one almost becomes immune to it. And I remember back in the 70s and in the 80s, becoming immune to the issues going on in the north. Oh yeah, not another death. Okay, another statistic, a tit for tat killing, etc. And you know, I suppose this is another theme that Audrey Magee has brought in, the theme of nationalism, self-identity, and you know what you have to do. Is it right to go so far to kill for your own causes, etc.? She doesn't really give any whether yes or a no, but having said that, we get these regular, as I've called them already, vignettes, little stories, little snippets of the atrocities that went on, lest we in Ireland forget these, because they were quite regular back in the day, as my son would say. So that's that. Have I one or two other comments? I have. On the other hand then, a friend of mine made a comment to me. She'd prefer not to be mentioned, but well, I thought the characters were very well built, very strong, but I felt it became a resentful writing, begrudging and slightly repetitive in character behaviour and in the idea of oppression by colonisation. A slightly grey read. Words are excellent, but the feel of the book is grey. I wouldn't want to invite it to dinner, nor want it to stay too long. So everybody has a different opinion on it. Again, I'm not sure that that particular person has read too many of the other books on the Booker Prize list, maybe one or two. But this particular book, for me, would be far more deserving of being on the shortlist than a couple of the books that were there. But look, you know, that's the beauty of these shortlists. Nobody's ever going to be very happy with them. I would be particularly happy with and recommend the Colony to a friend for sure. Look, I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I just have a short vlog in truth. For next month's book, I'm going to pick Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait. It's a book that's out recently. It'll be available in libraries, and certainly it's available in all the main bookshops for sure. Maggie O'Farrell is kind of another Irish writer, Northern Ireland this time, and she's famous for her Hamnet book, which was so popular in the last maybe year or two, which was written, I think it was brought out about 2 years ago. I stand corrected on that. It's not a book I read myself, but I am about maybe 100 pages into this particular book, and I think people will enjoy it. So for next month, that'll be the end of December, we will discuss the Maggie O'Farrell's book, the Marriage Portrait. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, maybe in the comments book underneath here. If you've already read this book, if you'd like to join us and maybe message me again, you know, you can put in the message under this particular vlog in 3 or 4 weeks time, and I'll read out. You can message me on Facebook at Fergus Cooper, or Instagram, and I'm certainly will read out, if you'd like me to, your comments. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. Till the next time, talk to you soon. Take care.